Hello, this is Jonathan Mallory at droneminds.com, and in this video I'm going to talk about why you should record in 4K instead of 1080p, or reasons to record in 4K, whether you're using a big rig with a Blackmagic production camera or maybe a S900 with a GH4, or you're considering maybe buying a Phantom 3 Professional like this, which has been pimped out a bit, or the advanced version, which is only 1080p. This one's 4K. Or the you might have a unique Q500 Plus like this one, and you're considering upgrading the camera when that's available for sale, or buying the 4K version of this. If you haven't bought any of them yet, I'd recommend buying the 4K version. And or maybe you've got one of these, or thinking of buying a DJI Inspire 1, and you're thinking, well, should I record things in 4K or 1080p? So obviously you get more slow motion options at 1080p. You can do better higher frame rates. But then if you record at 4K, there's more you can do than simply watching it in super high res on a 4K TV if you've got one, or a 4K computer monitor like this one. If you want to export it to 1080p, you can do more than just shrink it down. You can play with it because you've got a lot of frame around to play with. So in this video I'm going to be using Adobe Premiere to demonstrate some of the different things you can do with 4K video that you can't do with 1080p without losing quality. Okay, so I'm using Adobe Premiere Pro Creative Cloud 2015, and here on the left I have my video clips, which are all 4K and taken on the DJI Phantom 3, and I can import the clips into here. This is the editing box if you're not familiar with Adobe Premiere. And it's telling me that the clip doesn't match the sequence. The reason it doesn't match is because the clip is 4K in size and the editing sequence I've set up is 1080p. I want to keep those settings because I'm showing you in this video what you can do in 4K on a 1080p setup to export it as 1080p. So I'll keep that setting. See, I'm actually going to start about there. So in here we've got the subject walking along by a river near a church, and the reason she looks all like her head's down there is because this isn't the full frame. If you click on here, you can see the full frame is actually this. This is the 4K full frame. So one thing you can do is you could scale the frame to size, so I could reduce the 4K to 1080p size and see the whole image, which is more like that. But the only reason to do that is if you recorded something in 4K and the person you've recorded it for wants it in 1080p and they want to see the same image but in 1080p, so you scale it down to 1080p and export it like that. But assume you didn't want to do that, you want to undo that. The other thing you can do, because you've got all this extra border around here to play with, you can move the frame around wherever you want it to. So you could have just for this section, you could have her walking at this side of the frame. So she's walking nearly off the frame there. Or I can leave her in the middle, but move her a bit higher. You can see how high you can go until you get to that's the edge of the frame there. So I could keep her right up there. Or I could do the opposite and put her right on the bottom, so you're going to just see her head and arms. but you can see a bit of the church. Or I could put her right at the back of the frame, to the right of the frame. So she's there. So you get this the subject here with all this kind of bit in the front. I mean, there's a reason to do that as well. You might not. A lot of people getting into aerial filming with drones, they tend to always put the subject right in the middle like that. But that's not always what film people want, and it doesn't always look good to have the subject right in the middle. In fact, if you follow the photography rule of thirds, where you've got your grid cut up into thirds both ways, you might want to on one of the corners up there, like that. So you get this more sense of where she's heading to. So we've got another clip here where in the centre frame she's barely in the shot at all, but you can see in the full frame, if I fit the 4K frame to the size, you can see she is in the frame all the time. But you might, if you wanted to be closer than that, you can undo that, go back, and what I can do is reposition her initially, but I can only go to there because that's the edge of the frame. So that's still better, isn't it? But then the other thing you can do, because she's moving off that way, is you could actually do some motion and click position, and then when she starts moving off, must move a few frames on, and then move her back a bit, move her frames on, she's still going off again. I can still move her back a bit, move a few frames on. She's going that way now, so I could move her back this way. Still going off. And you see I can only go, if I go this way, I could actually go quite a long way before I get to the edge of the frame, which is over here. You know, so I can move her all the way back to here. Moving on a bit. Move her back down. Edge of the frame there. I won't keep doing this, so you get the idea. So if you watch, I mean, this is, you'd actually do this a lot more slowly and more frame by frame than this. I'm doing this a bit clumsily, but it just shows that you've got, because you've got all the extra to play with. It was all waving about now. I've got her stuck in the centre of the frame because I've got all this leeway, this margin around the edge. You see where the camera's bouncing about. That's where it's altering because the software is making it bump around these different points, key points that I've made. But if I made more and more, if I did it more subtly, it'd be smoother. You can see that circle going on there is where my adjustments are. So that's another option. Okay, so here's another section of clip. Again, this is the 1080p center of a 4K frame. Panning past her or tracking past her like that. I'll show you again. So just like before, if I wanted to, because she's not quite all there in the frame, I could just move the frame up a bit so you can see her better. Even a bit more. In fact, if I put her in the frame so I can see her properly, you can see she's actually standing up. So I can pan past her again. And don't forget, because this is a close-up centre of the frame, it actually looks a lot closer than it is, because we've got all this section of frame which is the full frame. So it's another close-up, a way to use a close-up like that. Right, so again we've got this pan-in past shot. Again, that's the centre. I could try something really strange. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I can try doing the motion and hit scale and then move to here and then change the scale so it's more zoomed out. Go as far as this. If I go that far, I've gone beyond the 4K frame. I can go up to there and then it should animate that. I don't know how strange this is going to look, so let's try it. So at the same time as going past, I'm actually zooming out. But that's not something I did in the original film. You know, the camera doesn't have a zoom option. So you can have it zoomed in, or you could animate it as a zoom out from the same frame, even if it was just something standing still. Okay, so here's another clip. I'm going to do something a bit crazy with this. So it's just a normal, if I just fast forward through it, don't have to watch the whole thing, it's kind of flies down towards her, then stops about there. But one thing you do, which is a little bit crazy, is you could animate the movement in like a circle. So you can, in motion on Adobe Premiere, you've got position, you've got scale, and you can also do rotation. So I could go there, move it to where I want it to stop. Say I want it to stop so it's focused on her when he finished spinning, and I can spin it around a full 360. Make sure it's exactly 360. It says 1 times 0, 0. So now when we play it back, we're going to get this, which I know is pretty weird. I don't know why you'd want this, but you never know, there might be some dream sequence or something crazy you want to do, why you want to do this. But you notice on the each quarter of the spin there's a bit of black appearing here in the corners here. You see that bit there? It just came in there. So to get rid of that, if I go back so you can see that black bit of corner coming in there, I can just change the scale here until it disappears. Now I'm actually losing a tiny bit of 1080p quality there, but only 2% of the 1080p frame. It's the kind of amount people use when they do stabilizing. So obviously, like I said, this is pretty crazy. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but well, I suppose it's kind of weird. You never know. Might be some music track or something you want to put it to, some kind of song. Okay, so this is another little clip. This is actually still using the Phantom, but it's just handheld. If you're going to fly somewhere that close to somebody's face or anywhere near them and that low to the ground, there's no reason to fly. You might as well just carry it. It's easier anyway. And it still does quite a good job as a Steadicam, I think. So what I'm going to do with this is do a Contra Zoom effect, which is where the camera is panning away from the background. Well, not panning away, it's like dollying away and tracking away from the background while zooming in at the same time. The most obvious example is on a movie called Jaws, where the main character is sitting on a chair on the beach and he sees a child get attacked by a shark, and realizes the full horror of the situation, so the camera kind of moves in while zooming out at the same time, or the other way around, and it gives this really weird effect. I'll show you what I mean. So what I'm going to do is go to the very first frame, and on motion I'm going to put scale. This works really well actually when you've got something in the middle of the frame that doesn't move too much left and right. In fact, it works better if the camera itself isn't moving left and right, it's either moving forwards or backwards, like it was on a track, like it was on a dolly, which is why sometimes it's called a dolly shot as well. It's a Contra Zoom dolly shot. So I'm going to start by scaling it down. I'll click that to turn it into an animation, and scale it down to you can see the edge of the frame there. I'll use nearly all the frame I can, so I don't want it to go off the frame. So I'm going to start there, and then I'm going to move in right up to here. Oh, that's maybe a bit long actually. Do you really want to look at this person for 25 seconds? Actually, I imagine most of you probably would. But anyway, I'll go to about there, because I think it might be too slow otherwise. Then I'm going to scale it up here, put a keyframe in there, scale it back up to 100%. So now, camera's moving away from the background while zooming into it at the same time. You see the trees around here, you get this kind of strange effect. I'll do a different one and just call that attempt number 2. I hope that it's been useful. These are just a few examples. Don't forget I'm doing these really quickly. If you're doing these properly, you'd spend a good long time doing this to get it all right. And you know, there's plenty of other things you can do. But the whole point is, when you're recording in 4K, as well as getting super high resolution video, you can also export it to 1080p and have this whole like frame area around here. If I import another one, so you've got this entire frame around here to play with, to move things around. See, to me that's a lot better shot. This was a photograph even. Having her there, like I said before, a lot of drone pilots have this idea, because they're not really photographers, they've just kind of stumbled in the photography part of it. So they put the subject in the centre, where a much better frame for this, because she's looking over that way, would actually be over here. And you get a feeling of where she's looking towards. Like that. And you also get the nice shot of the river at the side, instead of just over here like this, so you can barely see the river just in the top corner, and you just got this boring big piece of grass here. Well, you can have it like that. Why not have it like that? So you get her there and all this river as well. So there's some uses for shooting in 4K and exporting in 1080p. I hope that's been useful, and thank you for watching.
You may fire when ready.